August 4th, 2023 is a day to remember in Philadelphia sports history. A high-priced shortstop who was supposed to be the second coming of Jimmy Rollins, if not more, came home after another disappointing and embarrassing road trip. Part of the congregation right now is excited to hear about this, and the other part of the congregation says, I have no idea what he's talking about. So it goes. As he was due back at the bank, word was out that everyone at the game was going to rise and give him a standing ovation. Booing hadn't worked. Maybe this will. The idea was to send a message to this slumping all-star. We got your back. We're hanging in there with you, Trey. We still believe in you. We know you're better than what we've seen so far. And we're giving you an advance on what we know, what we hope you'll earn. So those of you who follow Philly sports, you know that this gesture of support became the talk of the town amongst Philly's baseball fans. There were many who were totally opposed to it. Don't give him a standing ovation. One caller to a sports show pretends to be a child psychologist, and he said, if your kids, this is what he said, if your kids are fighting in the back seat of the car, do you give them a chocolate bar? So brilliant. I changed the station. Some were downright incensed. Whatever happened to the city who threw snowballs at Santa Claus? By the way, even though it really was Santa's fault, we got a bad rap. It was really, Andrew, you know that, right? It was really Santa's fault. Are we becoming so soft we might be accused of being the sports city of brotherly and sisterly love? In sports, empathy and Philly are not synonymous. I personally was fully in favor of this generous gesture. I was right behind it. I didn't think it would turn around his season. I didn't think it would turn around his season right away, if at all. But why not say to somebody who's making $300 million, why not say, hey, we got your back. We haven't given up on you. We're with you. Here's why I was so much in favor of it. There was, passed away, blessed memory, Rabbi Abraham Twersky, a Hasidic rabbi who was also a psychiatrist. He specialized in addiction counseling, and he's written a number of self-help books that are read by people of all faiths. In one of his books, he writes that when he was a kid growing up, and he did something wrong, as kids do, when he did something wrong, his mother would say 3 words to him in Yiddish. She would say, Avram. That doesn't count as one of the words, that's his name. She would say, Avram. She says, Es passt nicht. Es passt nicht. Paula, we talked about this, right? Es passt nicht, which means, this behavior is not worthy of you. What you just did, the behavior, is not worthy of you. She was communicating to her son, you're better than what you just did. I believe in you. I really see the goodness inside of you. And just take note how much this differs from the parent who says, you keep that up, you'll turn out to be a nothing. And as the child internalizes that, a self-fulfilling prophecy is they grow up to become a nothing. Central to these days of all, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, is teshuvah, repentance. So what is repentance really? Maimonides lays it out in his steps of repentance. First, the individual has to sincerely regret what they did. And to really feel that regret, should never have done it. I feel so bad, I feel embarrassed, I feel guilty. It's the first step. Then they must vow to never do it again. And if their behavior impacted another individual, they have to go to that individual and apologize. And if any restitution is due, they have to make restitution. So you have regret, promise to never do it again, ask that person for forgiveness if it's against another person, pay restitution. And then repentance is fully affected. How will we know if that person really, really, really repented? When the individual finds himself in a situation where they could perform that same errant deed, that same offense, and they do not do it. That is the final step of repentance. They could do it again, but they don't. So that's repentance from A to Z, Aleph to Taf. It makes perfect sense. But the question is, what is the psychological component that inspires the offender to want to do teshuvah? Like, okay, feels bad about it, but why does he feel bad? Why does she feel bad? Why do they feel bad? Why do they want to ask for forgiveness? What's the psychological motivation to all of this? So that they don't go back and repeat the offense again and again. So here it is. This is the key. The psychological component is internalizing the idea that I am better than this. What I just did, or what I did 6 months ago, what I did last year, I'm thinking about it now. I know it's not worthy of me. I am better than this. I can do better than this. And I'm going to do better than this. Es passt nicht. That behavior is not worthy of me. You remember Trey Turner said his mother was crying when she saw the fans standing and cheering and supporting her son? She knew her son. She knew his batting average at the time was not worthy of the hitter he was. She knew he was better than all this. She believed in him. She wanted more for him, and from him and the fans were there with her. So what happened that night, August 4th? Standing ovation. Every time he came up to bat, standing ovation. As a Phillies fan, I truly did not expect results overnight. If you're a Philly fan, you're used to suffering. Was anybody going to say the suffering is now over? Standing ovation, everything's going to be good. That night, August 4th, Turner went 0 for 5. But the very next day, he hit a 3-run homer. Where'd that come from? Where'd that come from? Listen to this. In the next 25 games, Turner hit 10 home runs, 29 RBIs, and just for that period of time, he was hitting .236, but just for this period of time of these 25 games, he was batting .360. Wow. Yeah. On August 4th, Turner was hitting an anemic .236, not an all-star. But since then, he's been moving in one direction only, upwards. And those of you who know how it works, you know, in April, you can change your batting average overnight. Get a couple more hits, you're doing great. But by August, September, it's almost impossible to really change your batting significantly. Okay, August 4th, .236. September 15th, .271. His batting average is up 35 points in 6 weeks. Again, in August and September. It's absolutely incredible. In one game, he hit 2 home runs in the same inning, off of the same pitcher. All for the same pitcher. On August 29th, I went to the game with Ira Berkowitz, sitting right here on the fourth row. So Ira showed me a schedule. It was really in the beginning of the year, I think before the season even started. And you showed me 10 games that I could go to with you. So I picked one of the worst teams in the National and American League. I picked to go to the game of the Los Angeles Angels. Why? Well, those of you who are fans, you know why. I wanted to see Ohtani pitch, right? And I wanted to see Mike Trout, local guy from South Jersey, another star. I wanted to see him hit. So what a disappointment it was when Ohtani was no longer pitching. We saw him in the game. He got a few hits. We saw him in the game. And Trout wasn't around at all. So was that turn out to be a disappointment? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. The Phillies won 12-7, right? 12-7. They had 5 home runs during the game. I did not realize I could pop up so fast from my seat. Every time that ball is soaring out, it's like really a great feeling. You know, it's good to watch the game from home, but being there with more than 30,000 fans, and every time the ball's going out and everything's popping up, wow! It's great. It's great. Yeah. He got a 2-run double that night, a 2-run triple that night, and he got the last of the 5 home runs. You go, Trey Turner, you go. Yeah. Okay, so now my big question. Was all of this the result of the standing ovation? Was all of this the result of the standing ovation? I couldn't say that. Was his red-hot hitting and the standing ovation purely a coincidence? I wouldn't say that. Had the fans done nothing that night, August 4th, or had they booed him on his first game home after playing miserably on the road, had the fans done nothing or booed him, would he have turned it around as he did when he did? Not a chance. Not a chance. And I am sure of that. Those cheers and no jeers played some real role in the renewed Trey Turner. So even though I changed the station, I was back to the station. Well, before this, a fan called into a radio sports show and was singing Turner's praise. And the host simply said, "This is what was expected." That's it. This is what was expected. And it's kind of like Rabbi Twersky's mother. This is not the behavior that I expect of you. Here's what I expect. It's what was expected. So, dear friends, my question is, what do we expect of ourselves in this new year? What do we expect of ourselves in this new year? When we miss the mark, as we surely will in some way, large or small, can we say to ourselves, as pasnished, what we just did is not worthy of who I am, who I really am. But you have to start out with a healthy self-image that I got good stuff inside of me. Look what I can be better. I can do better than what I just did. I want to ask you this question. Who was the person in your life who you felt believed in you and had your back, inspired you to do better when you were in a slump? Maybe even not in a slump, but who was the person in your life who you can say, they believed in me. They had my back. And if such a person comes to mind, consider yourself blessed. Person comes to mind, that person who you knew, believed in you, no matter what the circumstances were, they had your back, they believed in you, consider yourself blessed. Such a person was our first high priest, our first Kohen Gadol, Aaron, brother of Moses. There is a teaching in Pirkei Avot from which the name of our synagogue comes. So listen to this. Teaching in Pirkei Avot, Ethics of Our Ancestors. Be amongst the disciples of the high priest Aaron. Ohev Shalom. Be one who loves peace. And one who pursues peace. And then, in a commentary of Avot, in another text called Avot de Rabbi Natan, the following story is told. It's a very sweet story. Perhaps it's a very simple story, but with deep meaning. One day, when Aaron was walking on the way, he came upon a Russia. You know what a Russia is? I'm not saying a Russian, though it could be a Russian. A Russia is an evil person. A Russia, right? An evil person. Comes upon an evil person, an evil individual, and Aaron said to him, Shalom. Aaron extended to him words of peace. The next day, that same Russia, evil man, was about to commit a sin. And he calls out, Oi, Lee! Have you ever said the word oi? Oi! Oi! You know what language that is? Oi! Oy vey, or oy vey is mir, is the whole phrase. But if you don't have time for a whole oy vey is mir, oy vey, you just say oi! Oi! What language is that? It's Rabbinic Hebrew. The oi is Rabbinic Hebrew. Because in this Rabbinic text, Avot Rabbi Natan, the Russia, and they have him speaking Hebrew, whether he's whatever, like, he says, oi, oi. Now when you say oi vey, now you're talking Yiddish. Oi vey is mir, you're really talking Yiddish. So the Russia says, oi, li, oi to me, Hebrew. He says, how will I face Aaron? I will be so embarrassed when he wishes me shalom. I will be so ashamed when he speaks words of peace to me. And so this man, the Russia, somehow stopped himself from sinning. A simple story, yes, a simple story, but with deep meaning. So now I want to pose a little different question. Before I asked, who was the person who believed in you? But now I want to ask the question, for whom have you been Aaron? To whom have you communicated to that person, I believe in you. Even after this happened, or even after you did this, I believe in you. I know you're better than this. I know you can do better. I know you will do better than this. So before I asked, who was that person that said that, communicated to you, and to whom have you communicated to another person? Well, dear friends, if only change came that easily. If only Major League ball players could get out of a season-long slump that simply. But nothing in life is easy. Nothing is simple, but the idea is profound. Treat someone in a way that they can feel worthy of more than they exhibit today, and definitely treat ourselves this way. Treat ourselves this way. See in ourselves more than we exhibit today. We can each have a better batting average than we do today on September 17th. We can hit home runs, we can get hits with runners in scoring position. Now and then we can make a play that others thought was absolutely impossible. Becoming more and better is never simple, never easy. But give yourself a standing ovation and then see what can happen. Just want to give you a little postscript to this talk. You don't have to raise your hands, but if you get the Sunday Bucks County Courier Times or the Intelligencer, in today's newspaper, if you get a paper, otherwise you can see it online, you'll find an article by me. I submit quarterly articles to the paper, and when they called and reminded me that I had one due last week, I thought, what am I going to do? I said, wait a second, I got a sermon ready to go. If I can get it down to 650 words, that's it. So I send it in, and the person that I send it to is Sister Eileen of the Sisters of the Gray Nun. So usually I send it to her. She writes back to acknowledge that I sent it, she received it. She sent back a note to me. She goes, Rabbi, I love that article. I love it, I love it, I love it. She tells me she's a big Phillies fan. So Sister Eileen and I have become pen pals, email pals. After a Phillies game, she'll send me one sentence, I write one sentence back, and especially after a loss, which there's been too many lately, she writes me two sentences, and So in our last communication, Sister Eileen and I, we agreed we're both going to now pray for Aaron Nola. Oi. Now you're talking Hebrew. Oi. Okay. And just one other postscript. In baseball, baseball is a very superstitious game, So when Lorenzen pitched his last decent game, which was a no-hitter, we saw him that night, and he gave up a run in every inning while he was still in. But so when he was pitching the no-hitter, that the announcers almost didn't mention that it was a no-hitter, because that's bad luck. It's like Kinayin Hara. So I'm just hoping that after I spoke so grandiosely about Trey Turner, come on, Turner, come on, keep it up. Don't let this jinx you. I don't want to jinx you. Don't jinx anybody. Getting into the playoffs. Then anything can happen. Okay, we're going to turn now, as we did yesterday, to the Chazan's prayer. And we'll find ourselves on page 279.